Top of the hour. Susan Magic will join us a bit later in the show. We look forward to that as well, and more coverage of what's going to be happening in Congress tomorrow, the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Very special guest in studio. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Make it plain on our social media, and on Twitter, Minister with 2 T's. Here in studio with us, the former, I'm going to go through it all, former Providence, Celtics, Knicks, Kentucky, and Louisville coach. Not in chronological order.
Right.
But I got them all, right?
Boston University.
Boston University, I forgot.
Yeah.
Boston was the first.
Yes, I was 24 as a head coach then.
Rick Pitino in studio with us. How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Thank you for coming in. How's it going?
It's going well. Been traveling quite a bit.
Yeah. You have your book, and I think there's another book coming out. You've been talking a lot about the aftermath of what happened at Louisville, correct?
The book is part memoir, and it deals with what went on the last 2 or 3 years. And the reason I wrote the book was 2 reasons. One, for closure to a coaching career for me, because it is sort of a memoir. And the second is to tell the truth about there's so many rumors in college basketball right now, who's going down, who's guilty of something. And it really is an interest. On October 1st, the first indictments are going to go to court, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Are you on that radar at all?
I have nothing to do with any of that.
Okay.
And
okay.
I write it in a chapter in a book called Billions, who deals with the Southern District of New York and the Showtime.
Yeah.
And that's almost the way it is in real life. The U.S. attorney who's no longer there grandstanded about college basketball being corrupt. And there's corruption in all walks of life, in every business. College basketball, I started 40 years ago. I thought back then it was less than 10%, and I think it's less than 10% today, except the dollars have gotten a lot bigger because of the shoe companies.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the issues at Louisville. It was the controversy around the shoe company and, the compensation for an athlete. So you've spoken about that, I believe, and from your point of view, you did nothing wrong.
I knew nothing about it.
Nothing about it.
I went to great length afterwards to find out what was going on. Basically, I still don't believe, but I don't have any proof of this, that the mom and the young athlete knew nothing about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly, it was an Adidas representative and some other people with a couple of scam artists who were trying to scam the FBI out of money and then get money through Adidas to pay this somebody with the athlete who was connected with him. But they've all been indicted, and it goes to trial on October 1st.
Were you called to for an interview or an investigation?
The FBI came in on about 4 different programs. They grabbed my 2 assistants at the airport, came in and visited me, asked me if I wanted an attorney. I said no, I don't know what this is about. They explained the situation, told them the truth about everything, and then I started thinking the last few months. I said, why are they doing all of this? Because these are not hardcore criminals. They're Adidas people trying to pay some athletes' families to get them when they become pro.
Uh-huh.
It's not to help the University of Louisville, because this young man maybe would have helped. It wasn't going to turn our program around because we were going pretty strong. But I'm not sure the why of what they were doing. These Adidas reps was sold a bill of goods, and they believed that one of the FBI head investigators was taken off the case because he was spending the money that's supposed to be given to assistant coaches on gambling, alcohol, and other things in Las Vegas. So It's been a circus. I'm not sure why they even got involved in this.
So you mentioned that there's only about 10% of you think less than 10% of this type of corruption going on.
Yeah, I think the shoe companies have made it very substantial, the amounts of money. Back 30 years ago when I was a head coach, somebody may give a young man $1,000 to get his family to travel to games or whatnot.
Uh-huh.
Today, you listen to the amounts of $150,000, but they're giving this money to try and get them when they become professional athletes, not to get them to go to a certain university. They have ulterior motives in what they're doing.
The shoe companies, you mean?
Yes.
And so that's problematic, isn't it?
Very much so. And, this was, I go into great detail in the book about the NCAA knew about this because 4 years ago at a press conference, I said, the shoe companies have got to get out of the recruiting business. So you're a Georgetown fan, and you're with Nike, and you're with Jumpman, great brand.
Yeah.
So you're going to try to, at high school levels, if you're an AAU program and you're represented by Jumpman, you're going to try to get those kids to go to North Carolina or Georgetown because Jumpman's paying your AAU program, and then or Nike or Under Armour or Adidas. So it serves them well for them to go to a university that's represented by Adidas or Nike, their brand, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out at a press conference and said, this is wrong. Kids should not be choosing schools based on what shoes they wear during the AAU circuit. So that got some attention, but the AAU, the NCAA is not proactive. They're reactive. When there's a crisis or a problem, they react strongly. But they knew what was going on 4 or 5 years ago, and they didn't do anything about it.
There's the FBI investigation you mentioned. There'll be indictments. But there's also an NCAA investigation, correct?
Well, there will be, right? The NCAA, I was going to get another head coaching job, and they called the NCAA and said, could you give us full clearance on Rick Pitino?
Where was that? Are you liberty to disclose?
No,
Okay,
I'm
okay.
not. But they came back and said, we can't even respond. The FBI has told us not to investigate. So I think when this is all over, the FBI will give all their evidence, possibly, to the NCAA. They'll start their investigations. There's a lot of schools involved here. Georgetown is not one of them, so
yes,
feel good about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do feel good about that, and as a student of Big John's, I mean, we learned early on, one of the things that we were most proud of is that he took a lot of extra steps himself to steer clear of a lot of things. And I was around, people would come around and say, well, why don't you do it this way? Why don't you do it that way? And I'll be honest with you, Rick, Big John being a black man, I think he knew that, justice, the scales of justice aren't even. So if an African-American coach was involved in anything like that, that gavel would have probably come down a lot more harshly,
Back then, yes.
Yeah. There's also the scandal at Louisville with the prostitution. Were you not aware of that either?
Again, I go into great detail. The book is called My Story, and
yes, Pitino, My Story.
I go into great detail with that. I would be the last person of everybody to know because they're going to keep it from me. If they got caught, some of the players and the person who was organizing it, he would have been fired, lost his job. The players would have been off the team. So I'm going to be the last person to know what's going on in the dormitory. I once asked a guy from ESPN who was getting on me about I should have known. I said, well, let me ask you this question. It was Mike Golick from ESPN. I said, Mike, you played football at Notre Dame. How many times did your coach come in your dormitory in times you played? He said, never. I said, well, my coach didn't either at the University of Massachusetts, where I was a student along with Al Skinner and Dr. J. I said, never came in. Now, I was in that dorm a lot to show film to the players the night before games. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm not in a dormitory. I'm sleeping, getting ready to get into work at 6 o'clock. So they did this 4 times a year for 4 years, ran these strip parties and did reprehensible things in a dormitory, by the way, that I named after my brother-in-law to build a legacy for him, who I lost in 9/11. He was my best friend in life. So that was a very special place for me. And this behavior has still to this day has really bothered me and hurt a lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of people that tied into that dormitory. My nephews, whose dad was named after that, lived in that dormitory on the same floor with the person that perpetrated this type of behavior. Mm-hmm. So it bothered a lot of us. But, of course, I wouldn't have known. It would have immediately been.
And there were no rumors about it? You said your nephew was in the same?
Yep, nephew, 20 managers. This was
didn't hear anything.
The fascinating thing about the whole thing, how it didn't get out. So you're 4 times a year, recruits come in, they get involved in a strip party, and things don't go on campus visits with college athletes. It doesn't happen that way because it would get out. Social media today, we monitor social media with every recruit that visits. So you're a recruit, you go home and you tell one of your friends, you can't believe what went on in Louisville. You can't believe this. Well, you're going to do that. And that kid's going to get on Twitter or say something. Mm-hmm. Nothing. in 4 years.
Hmm.
The security guard who was there for 4 years, nothing. They went through extreme measures to make sure nobody knew this was going on, this behavior.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that it didn't go out on social media because
And
normally
we
that's what people
monitor
do.
every recruit because we want to know, how his visit went. How did it go? Is it possible that we're in the top 2, top 4? Where do we stand?
But looking back on it though, do you think that you should have monitored more closely? Maybe should have
I monitor.
gone up the hill and
No,
stop.
I'm not going to go in a dormitory at 1 o'clock in the morning and go knocking on somebody's door behind a closed door room. It just doesn't happen that way.
Is there anything else you think you could have done though?
I would have probably I had 3 assistant coaches that were full time. The one person that did it was operations coach. He's not on the floor. I would have probably monitored them different, not necessarily the operations coach, because they're, it filters down. I'm the CEO of a company.
Right.
And the vice presidents go down, and you go down to the guy who's in the middle of the pit, handing slips out to people who are trading stocks, so to speak. Everybody's responsible for their actions, and you as a leader have to be responsible for that. I didn't mentor this young man any different than I did Billy Donovan when he was assistant coach, or Jeff Van Gundy was when he was my GA. I mentored everybody the same way. And I have a level of trust. They realize that they do it the wrong way, they're going to be fired. So I mentor everyone to do it the right way with the certain rules that we have to abide by. Everybody for 35 years followed that. I've had over 30 assistant coaches go on to be head coaches. And 1 or 2 of them messed up. And it's a good track record, but they messed up in a big way and cost me my career. I'm not coaching today a game that I truly am passionate about because of that. And that's what I have to suffer with because I did not know any of this was going on.
Rick Pitino with us, folks, 1:15. You mentioned, I think I read somewhere where you are of the belief that you won't be given an opportunity to coach again.
No, I think I would be given an opportunity.
You do? Okay.
I don't think I will coach again. That's my decision.
Oh, is that right?
Not to coach again.
Why not?
It's. I don't want to go. I don't want to go to bed at night with one eye open, wondering what my assistant coach is going to do. It's left an incredible bitter taste in my mouth. Even though I've had so many positive experiences with my assistant coaches, and I'm very proud of them. I just want to go to bed at night, close my eyes, and sleep. I don't want to worry about, is there something going on? Now, that was the extreme. That just doesn't go on in college basketball, what went on there. It doesn't go on. That was one person just, I don't know. The greatest puzzle to me in my life, this is a terrific young man who played for me, was my captain, brought him up the ladder, so to speak, 2 beautiful parents. This is not someone who, just had a very difficult childhood. This is someone who was raised with a lot of discipline. And so it really bothers me to today that this went on because he was a terrific young man. I still love him dearly, but it hurts.
Okay. You mentioned the money and the shoe companies and all of that. Are you one who agrees that at some point we need to talk about compensating these student athletes? Isn't that part of the problem that lends itself to that?
Here's the problem. The athletes, I don't think, are involved in the cheating that goes on today.
Right.
It's the families. It's not the athlete. I would say probably 80-90% of the time the athlete has no clue that the family's getting any money. Why is the family taking money? Their mentality, less than 10%, is saying, look, my son's going there. They're making millions of dollars in the NCAA tournament because my son's one of the stars of the team. This university is making millions of dollars. We can't even afford to get to the games and stay in a hotel. So I'm taking some money so we can go see my son play.
Right.
That's why they do it, not to get wealthy.
Right.
The young man's getting what's called cost of it. Like, let's take Louisville, for example. He's getting $4,000, what's called cost of attendance for spending money. He's then getting probably another $4,000 to $5,000 on top of the Pell Grant. So he's getting about $9,000 to $10,000 a year spending money on top of room, board, books, and tuition, 4 meals a day. So they're being compensated. Now, should they be compensated more than that? So I say yes. I think Condi Rice agrees with me on that, yes. So I brought up the point where I should be able to go to an autograph signing. I should be able to do a commercial if I'm a young athlete, because any student can do a commercial. The problem is if I do a commercial at Louisville and I get $20,000 for doing that commercial, the Alabama football player can get $100,000 because that's so big there. So
Mm.
that's where it gets out of hand, and I don't know how you control it.
Mhm.
But going back to the NCAA, in 2022, the NBA is probably going to say no more one and dones. A high school basketball player can go right to the pros. And it's disturbing for me because what's going to really hurt when you're a one and done athlete, you don't get an education. The kid's
Mhm.
going to Duke or Kentucky or Louisville or whatever is a one and done. He's going to school for 6, 7 months. He's not getting an education. Where the education comes in is in high school, that young athlete, he had to take 16 core requirements with a certain grade point average.
Mhm.
And if he wants to go to Georgetown, he better
Yeah.
have great grades.
Yeah.
So he has to study. Now, the young athlete, especially from the inner cities, are going to say, you know what? I don't have to study and take those courses. I'm going pro. And if I don't go to NBA, I'm going to G League. So the heck with college.
Yeah.
So it's going to hurt the high school kid getting that education, and that's what bothers me. Baseball and football have a great scheme. You stay until your junior year, and the colleges are a great farm system for the pros.
Mhm.
The NBA and college have not gotten together to make that a better system.
Why not?
I think the agents are involved. The Players Association at the NBA level is very strong, and they want the young man to come out of high school because the second contract's where they get really wealthy. So if they go out of high school and they're 18, so at 22, they come into $100 million. So the
Mhm.
agent gets wealthy, the athlete gets wealthy, um, and they think it's a much better system that way.
If that unfolds in the way you describe it, I mean that's gonna decimate college basketball.
Well, it's going to take the stars away, but the stars were only staying 1 year.
Anyway,
But
nowadays, yeah,
1 year
yeah.
was better than for me. I'm not worried about that. College basketball still survive. Yes, it will certainly get watered down from the stars, the LeBrons, the Kobe's, what you saw last year with Bagley at Duke and Ayton at Arizona and so on. You won't see those players anymore, and certainly it'll be watered down somewhat, and the contract for March Madness won't be as big down the road. But where really hurts is the young kid growing up who, we all overrate. When we play high school basketball, we all think we're going to be the next, I was going to
Right.
be the next Walt Frazier in high school.
Okay.
So, um, but you stop studying because you're not motivated to go to college because you think you're going to be a pro. So you don't study as hard. You don't get the core requirements, and
Uh-huh.
and that bothers me from an educational standpoint.
Um, what did you prefer, NBA or college coaching?
Well, I love the Knicks
All right.
because we won. I
Yeah.
didn't like the Celtics because we lost. And Pat Riley says it best but when describing the NBA, it's winning or misery, and there's nothing in between. So if you win, it's great. If you lose, it's misery because it's a long 100-game season.
Yeah.
I love college. I love my Knicks teams. I'm still close today to Patrick, Mark
Yeah.
Jackson.
Yeah.
I love Oak. I love all the guys that played for me. Rick Carlisle played for me with the Knicks, but it was great. With the Celtics, if you lose, they won 14 games when I took over. The ping pong balls didn't go my way, and I didn't get Tim
Mhm.
Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that I got to know Bill Russell and
Yeah.
Kuzi and Havlicek and all those Heinsohn and all those guys,
Mhm.
Red Auerbach. But it's winning and misery. Where college, you establish lifelong friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of your culture for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. And you really kind of get an opportunity, and I know that's one of the things Big John always enjoyed. You get to mold young men's lives early on. Something that I know he was always committed to. So you keep in touch with Patrick.
I do. I spoke to Patrick about a week ago.
Okay.
We were talking. I was possibly going to go in and speak to the Georgetown basketball team. I've been on a little bit of a circuit speaking to teams.
Yeah. You were Syracuse.
Yes,
the other day.
yesterday. I watch practice. I give feedback to the staff.
Okay.
I give a motivational speech to the team about how to get the most out of your abilities, how to reach your potential as an individual and as a team. And then I watch and spend time with the staff. It's a lot of fun for me.
I always thought you coached the Knicks. You brought a college basketball approach to the Knicks because the Knicks, the defense even looked almost like Georgetown. I mean, you guys were, baseline to baseline.
Yep.
And you didn't see that. You didn't see that in the NBA.
No, and we shot more threes back then. I know it's prevalent today, but back then we were shooting a lot of threes. We call the Bombinos, and
Yeah.
we averaged 116.8 points per game, won the Atlantic Division,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd still be a pro coach for the Knicks if we didn't get knocked out in the second round. And I
Yeah.
always say this: Michael Jordan put me back into college basketball.
I guess that's true. Rick Pitino, his book My Story, folks. We invite you to check it out. So you're just visiting the different college campuses right now?
Yes, I'm gonna head up to Manhattan College this afternoon and visit my ex New York Knicks ball boy Steve Masiello,
Okay.
and watch his team practice, speak to the team a little bit, then go spend some time with my son Ryan out in Westchester, and then head back into the city tomorrow.
All right. And he was saying, folks, so you're going to be, this is home now.
This is it. Well, for the next few months, and then I split it with Miami. I'm a real snowbird now. I head down to Miami.
As we would just coming on, Coach was coming in, and y'all, our favorite president was on television. What do you think about Trump and?
You know, I try not to get involved. I'm an independent. I voted for President Obama. I voted for George Bush. So I voted with both parties. I just think to be a great leader, let's forget about Trump for a second. To be a great leader,
Mm-hmm.
you must be extremely humble
Mm-hmm.
and you must be a good listener because you have to surround yourself with people smarter than you to be a great coach, great leader. And you can't be intimidated by that. You have to be, if I'm getting ready and I want somebody who I want to run motion offense, I want to get the best assistant coach that knows about motion offense.
Right.
I'm not going to be intimidated by that. But you have to be a great listener
Yeah.
and great leader. So those are some of the qualities. I think humility and being a great listener is a quality of a terrific leader. So, with anybody, you have to listen to your generals. You have to listen to your PR people. You have to listen to all of that in all walks of life, forgetting about President Trump. And he's very controversial, needless to say. Some people he has a great following. And the Democrats, in all walks of life, if I'm not going to knock Coach K because he's at the top of the pinnacle, I'm going to go out there and try to beat his ass as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try to knock him every single day.
Right.
So to me, I got to go get some players that can compete with him, so I can beat him.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do in politics and in basketball.
Yeah. True. But do you ever think about this too, though? I mean, you obviously have undergone and are undergoing a great deal of scrutiny. And, these things follow you, and I think you've accepted that. But do you think it's sort of an unfair or double standard? It doesn't happen to people like him. I mean, there's things out there about him, but he's the president. You and others may be held accountable for your actions, but over here, he's not. Do you ever think about that as a double standard? Does that concern you?
He gets knocked with every show except for Fox. Every single day, he gets torn to pieces. So the one thing about him, I don't know how many people in life could withstand the criticism on a daily basis that he gets, and he fights back. He goes after those people on Twitter and other things, and it's not something I'd want to do every single day of my life. Is answer my critics, go after them. I just don't want to do that, and that's why I put closure in my career, because I'm going to try to still give a lot to athletes,
Okay.
but I just don't want to. I don't want to fight people. I don't want to fight the media. I don't want to fight anybody.
Right.
I want to enjoy life a little bit. I want to wake up in the morning and smell the roses, so to speak. And I don't know if he's smelling the roses. I wouldn't want to be him.
Yeah.
For all the money in the world, I wouldn't want to be him.
Well, that's a good lead into my last question. What on earth? I mean, how could you think you could survive to even smell the roses going from Lexington, Kentucky to Louisville? I mean, that's worse than being a Red Sox going to the Yankees, man. And when I was like, that was almost suicidal.
Didn't Bill Parcells go from the Giants to the Jets?
Yeah, but that ain't Lexington to Louisville. It's rough down
remember
there.
now, I didn't go from Lexington to Louisville. I went from Lexington to the Boston Celtics.
I know, not immediately.
Yeah,
but still.
Well,
people were tripping.
It's almost in hindsight, I think you're right. But what my thinking was back then, I loved living in the States so much.
Really?
Had so many great times. I said this, I was born a New Yorker, but I wanted to die a Kentuckian. And because I enjoyed it so much, I called Kentucky Camelot. I worked there for 7 years, and every single day was a great day. Really enjoyed Louisville up until the last couple of years. So I really loved living in Kentucky, loved the people.
Okay.
So it wasn't about that. It wasn't about the schools because I was going to take the Michigan job, and my wife talked me out of it to take the Louisville job.
Okay.
And she said, "You mean to tell me one game every 2 years as we travel to Rupp, you're going to stop living in a place you have great friends, you really enjoy?"
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that made great sense. In hindsight, she was probably wrong, and I was right. I should have gone to Michigan.
Okay. Okay. Rick Pitino, our very special guest. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Folks, check out the book Pitino, My Story. Obviously, we'll be hearing more from you, if not on the sidelines, in the capacity of at least talking to some of these young people. What about broadcasting? You thought of being?
Well,
I'm sure you've been.
I'm doing a podcast this year.
That's right, you are. That's right.
And
Playing
got some
Miss-
great guests. My
Okay.
first guest is going to be Billy Donovan right before they play the Golden State Warriors, October 16th. Then I'm going to have guys like Derek Jeter and people that I really admire in my life. That's
Okay.
I'm trying to get people that I really admire in my life, have made a difference. I'm really into motivation,
Okay.
really into inspiration. I want people listening to be inspired, be motivated to reach their potential. And so I pick out people that I think could do that.
Okay. No, that's good. But I mean, any color play-by-play outreach?
Not this year.
Okay.
Not this
Have
year.
you been? I'm sure you've been reached out to.
Well, I think we got to let this Southern District of New York
That it subside.
get that behind. We're going to know more about what's coming out in the next few months in college basketball because nobody really knows what they have and what they don't have.
Okay.
It's 4 years of wiretapping people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot. Rick Pitino, thanks for coming in,
Thank
man.
you.
Okay, good to see you. All right, folks, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Rick Pitino, My Story. He's also just joined Twitter, right?
I did just about a week or so ago.
Real Pitino, at Real Pitino. And what's the name of the podcast?
It's going to be Pitino Press.
Pitino Press. So be on the lookout for that as well. We'll be back, folks. 1:30 the hour. Sirius XM Progress 127, Resistance Radio. This is MIP.